My sister threw an entire glass of red wine across my army uniform and called me a fake soldier in front of 40 people. I thought the worst part was the humiliation. I was wrong. Minutes later, my fiancé's brother turned pale when he saw the patch on my shoulder. Then I received a message from an unknown number. Don't go back to Fort Belvoir tomorrow. By sunrise, my military clearance was suspended, my personnel file had been altered, and someone had planted classified evidence inside my office. Then I discovered my father's death 12 years earlier might not have been an accident. And the person who knew the truth had been hiding much closer than I ever imagined. If you were me, would you investigate the warning or walk away before it was too late? Tell me your answer in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. The first thing my sister said when she saw me in my army uniform was, "You actually wore that here?" I had been standing inside the private dining room for less than 30 seconds. My name is Elena Kobayashi. I was 29, a U.S. Army logistics officer, and that Saturday I drove from Fort Belvoir to Alexandria for my sister Mireille's engagement. Mireille was 3 years older, a corporate event director, and very good at making insults sound like observations. Her fiancé, Callan, was an Army Ranger, quiet and disciplined. I knew both of them well. At least I thought I did. "I told you this was formal," Mireille said, looking at my uniform. "I know. My inspection ran late. You couldn't change?" "I didn't have time." She glanced toward the other guests. Everyone else managed. Callan approached from behind her. "You made it," he said. "I did." His eyes dropped briefly to my uniform. Then he looked at Mireille. "Leave her alone." Mireille smiled. "I'm not doing anything." She was. I just didn't know what yet. A few minutes later, everyone took their seats. 40 people had been invited. Officers, contractors, lawyers, family friends, and strangers. A waiter poured wine while Mireille stood at the head of the table. She raised her glass. "To Callan," she said, "the man who somehow convinced me to marry him." People laughed. Callan smiled. Then Mireille turned toward me. "And to my little sister Elena, who apparently couldn't stay away from a uniform long enough to attend a family dinner." The laughter became quieter. I kept my expression neutral. Mireille continued. "She has always loved pretending she's tougher than she is." I put down my glass. "Mireille." She ignored me. "She works in logistics," she said. "No combat deployment. No special operations. Mostly paperwork." I looked at Callan. He wasn't laughing. "Mireille," he said again. She lifted her glass. "I'm just telling the truth." I stood. "If you have something to say, say it." Her smile disappeared. "You want direct?" "Yes." "You're not a real soldier." I stared at her. "I never said I was a ranger." "You wear the uniform like you want people to think you are." "I wear it because it's my uniform." "You wear it because you need everyone to think you're important." Callan stepped forward. "Enough." Mireille looked at him. "You always defend her. Because you're being cruel." Something changed in her face. Then she picked up her wine glass. I thought she was going to drink. Instead, she threw it. The wine hit my chest and ran across my uniform. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the floor. Mireille pointed at me. "Take it off. You're making a joke out of the army." I didn't move. Then Callan went pale. Not embarrassed. Not angry. Pale. His eyes were fixed on my left shoulder. "Elena," he said quietly. "What?" "Don't move." I looked down. He stepped closer. "Where did you get that patch?" I frowned. "My unit issued it." "No." His voice was almost a whisper. "That patch isn't supposed to be there." Mireille crossed her arms. "Callan, stop." He didn't look at her. He reached toward my shoulder, but stopped before touching the fabric. "Who altered your uniform?" "I don't know." "Look at the stitching." I examined my reflection. The patch looked normal. Callan shook his head. "I saw this insignia 3 years ago." "Where?" "On a classified recovery operation." My stomach tightened. Mireille laughed nervously. "You're seriously buying this?" Callan finally looked at her. "Who told you Elena's assignment was only logistics?" She blinked. "You did." "I never told you that." I looked from one to the other. Something was wrong. Before I could ask, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I opened the message. Don't go back to Fort Belvoir tomorrow. A second message arrived immediately. Someone has altered your personnel file. Then a third message appeared. The wine was not the important part. Check your shoulder before you leave. My heart started beating faster. I pulled my jacket away. Callan noticed. What did you get? Nothing. He studied my face. I know. That's a lie. I ignored him and walked toward the restroom. Inside, I locked the door. The wine had soaked through the fabric. I removed my jacket. I pulled at the newer stitching beneath the shoulder lining. A tiny black tag slid out. There was a serial number printed on it. Then my phone rang. It was Callan. I answered. Elena, listen to me. What is this? I don't know yet. You said you saw the patch before. Where? On a soldier who disappeared. I went completely still. What soldier? Callan lowered his voice. The one my unit was ordered to report as a deserter. Why would his insignia be on my uniform? I don't know. You're hiding something. I know. That answer scared me more than denial would have. I opened a restroom door. Callan was standing outside. Mireille was several feet behind him. She had stopped smiling. She looked frightened. Callan looked at the tag, then at Mireille. Where did you get this? She didn't answer. Mireille. Her lips parted. I didn't put it there. I didn't ask if you put it there. He took one step toward her. Who gave you the instructions? She looked at me. Then she whispered 4 words. Soren told me to do it. I had never heard the name before. Callan had. His face changed instantly. Soren Vale? Mireille nodded. Callan stepped back. No. I looked at him. Who is Soren Vale? He didn't answer. He reached for my phone. Elena, we need to leave. Why? If Soren Vale knows you're wearing that tag, we're too late. Then the restaurant lights flickered. My phone vibrated again. This time the message contained a photograph. It showed me walking into the restaurant earlier that evening. Taken from across the street. Someone had been watching me before the dinner even started. Under it were 6 words. Your sister was told to start this. I looked at Mireille. She began to cry. And suddenly I understood that the wine had never been the attack. It had been the signal. I left the restaurant through the kitchen door because Callan said the front entrance was no longer safe. That sentence should have sounded ridiculous. It didn't. My name is Elena Kobayashi, and for the first time in my military career, I was walking away from a private dinner while an army ranger watched every window behind me. Mireille followed us. Outside, cold October air hit the wine-soaked fabric of my uniform. Callan scanned the parking lot before speaking. Get in my car. No. He looked at me. I want answers. You'll get them. Now. He glanced at Mireille. Not here. We crossed the alley toward his SUV. A black sedan sat near the corner with its headlights off. Callan stopped. Do you know that car? I looked at the license plate. No. Neither do I. Mireille whispered. Soren said nobody would hurt us. Callan turned sharply. Us. She swallowed. He said this would only take one night. What would? I don't know. You told me he instructed you to throw wine. I didn't know why. I stared at her. You humiliated me in front of 40 people, and you didn't know why. I was scared. Of him? She nodded. Callan opened the passenger door. Both of you get inside. We drove to his apartment in Arlington. He checked the building entrance twice before letting us in. Then he locked the door and placed the black tag for my uniform on the kitchen table. What is it? I asked. I don't know. You recognize the patch. I recognized the insignia, not the tag. Then explain. Callan pulled out a chair. 3 years ago, my team was assigned to recover a military contractor who disappeared after reporting fraud. Did you find him? No. What happened? We found his vehicle. Empty. Was he declared dead? Deserted. That doesn't make sense. It didn't to us either. He examined the tag with tweezers. The insignia belonged to a temporary logistics cell. My field. Yes. Why would that be on my uniform? Because someone wants you connected to something you didn't do. Mireille sat silently on the couch. I turned toward her. How long have you known Soren? For months. Where did you meet? At a contractor event. Why was he paying you? Her eyes dropped. My business was failing. I owed money. How much? $80,000. I felt my anger shift. What did you give him? Guest lists. What kind? Names. Companies. Military personnel. Contractors. Callan looked at her. Did you give him Elena's information? No. Are you sure? I never gave him her military records. What did he tell you to do tonight? I asked. Mireille hesitated. He said I needed to make you angry enough to leave. Why? He said someone would follow you. Who? I don't know. My phone vibrated. Another message. Don't trust Callan. I looked at him. He noticed. What? Nothing. He held out his hand. Show me. I gave him the phone. He read the message. Then his expression became serious. They're trying to separate us. Who? I don't know yet. How do you know? Because someone used the same tactic 3 years ago. He placed the phone on the table. After the contractor disappeared, messages were sent to every member of my team. What did they say? That one of us was compromised. Was anyone? Yes. Who? The commander. Silence filled the room. Mireille stood. I need to leave. No, Callan said. She froze. If you leave now, they can use you. You think I'm part of this. I think someone is using you. She looked at me. And Elena? Callan's eyes moved toward me. I think Elena was selected because she can access something they need. I remembered the warning. My personnel file. The altered uniform. The photograph. What can I access? I don't know. Then we find out. Callan opened his laptop. I can check your personnel audit history. He entered my information. The screen loaded, then stopped. Access restricted. Callan frowned. That shouldn't happen. Try again. He did. A red warning appeared. Account under review. I stared at it. I was never told my account was under review. Callan leaned closer. Look at the timestamp. The review had started at 4:17 p.m. I checked my phone. I had entered the restaurant at 7:03 p.m. Someone had placed my account under investigation nearly 3 hours before my sister threw the wine. Before the argument. Before the patch. Before I knew anything was wrong. This was planned, I said. Callan nodded. Then another line appeared. Review authorized by G. Rusk. Callan immediately closed the laptop. Who is G. Rusk? I asked. He didn't answer. Callan. Colonel Gideon Rusk. Who is he? Someone I hoped I'd never see again. Why? He was my commander. I stared at him. Your former commander? Yes. Why would he authorize a review of me? I don't know. Mireille suddenly spoke. He knows your family. I turned. How? He used to come to our house. When? After Dad died. My chest tightened. You knew him? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because Mom trusted him. Callan looked at her. Your mother trusted Rusk? She thought he was helping us. I sat down. My father had died when I was 17. For years, everyone had called it an accident. Rusk had attended the funeral. He had helped my mother with paperwork. He had stood beside me and said, Your father was a good man. I remembered that moment clearly. Now I wondered what he had known. Where is Rusk now? I asked. At the Pentagon, Callan said. Can you contact him? No. Why? Because if he authorized this review, he already knows we're looking. I looked at the black tag. Then we need to know what he's looking for. Callan reached toward the evidence bag. Before he touched it, his phone rang. He answered. Yes. His expression changed. What do you mean? He listened. Repeat that. Then he stood. I'm on my way. He ended the call. What happened? Your unit received an emergency order. What kind? Your office was sealed. My pulse jumped. Why? Investigators found classified material inside your desk. I don't have classified material in my desk. I know. Then someone put it there. Callan nodded. And they're already inside the building. We left immediately. The drive to Fort Belvoir took 25 minutes. Mireille sat in the back seat, crying silently. I watched the road. Every few seconds, I checked the mirrors. The black sedan was gone. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. When we reached the gate, security stopped us. Callan showed his identification. The guard looked at me, then at his screen. Captain Kobayashi? Lieutenant, I corrected. He looked uncomfortable. Your clearance has been suspended. My stomach dropped. Since when? 22 minutes ago. Callan stepped forward. Who authorized it? The guard shook his head. I don't have that information. A black government SUV passed through the gate. I recognized the driver. Soren Vale. He turned his head as he passed. Our eyes met. He smiled. Then my phone vibrated. I looked down. You should have stayed at the restaurant. A second message appeared. Your father didn't. I stared at the screen.
Callan saw it.
What did they send? I handed him the phone. He read the words, then looked toward the SUV disappearing down the road. Your father? I nodded. His voice became quiet. Elena, I need to ask you something. What? Was your father's death really an accident? I couldn't answer. For 12 years, I had accepted the official story. A wet road. A damaged guardrail. A single car accident. No witnesses. No criminal investigation. But suddenly, every detail felt incomplete. Mireille leaned forward from the back seat. Dad was investigating something before he died. I turned around. What? She wiped her face. I heard him arguing with someone. Who? I don't know. You never told me this. I was 17 too. I was scared. What did he say? She closed her eyes. He said, if they erase the records, they can't erase the original. Callan looked at me. What original? I don't know, Mireille whispered. The gate behind us locked automatically. The guards stepped away from our vehicle. Nobody was allowed to enter. I looked through the windshield at Fort Belvoir. My workplace was only a few hundred yards away, yet suddenly it felt inaccessible. Callan's phone rang again. He answered. Vey. He listened. Then his face hardened. What? I watched him. What happened? He ended the call. Soren isn't inside the SUV. What? He left the vehicle 2 minutes ago. Where is he? Callan looked toward the base. Inside. My phone vibrated again. This time there was a photograph. It showed my father's old desk. I hadn't seen that desk in 12 years. On top of it sat a brown envelope. My name was written across the front. Under the photograph were 8 words. Your father left you something he never gave you. I stared at the image. Then another message arrived. Find it before Rusk does. For the first time that night, I stopped thinking about the wine, the altered patch, and the accusations. Someone had spent years waiting for me to find something my father had hidden. And now that person knew I was finally looking. The investigation hadn't begun when Mireille threw the wine. It had begun 12 years earlier. With my father's death. I had spent 12 years believing my father died on a wet road outside Fredericksburg. By sunrise, I was standing outside a sealed military office because someone wanted me to believe he had left evidence before he died. The difference mattered. My name is Elena Kobayashi, and I had learned one thing about investigations. When too many people tell you the same simple story, look for the complicated one. Callan and I left Fort Belvoir after the gate refused us entry. Mireille came with us because Callan insisted she was safer where he could see her. We stopped at an all-night diner in Springfield. At 2:18 a.m., I placed my father's photograph on the table. Tell me everything you remember, I said. Mireille wrapped both hands around her coffee. Dad had been different for weeks.
How?
He checked the windows before bed. He stopped using his computer at home. He kept a notebook in the kitchen. What happened to it? I don't know. Callan sat across from us. Did he ever mention Gideon Rusk? Mireille nodded. Once. What did he say? He called him dangerous. I looked at Callan. You said Rusk was your commander. He was. And my father knew him. Yes. Why did Rusk help our family after Dad died? Callan's expression tightened. He told you he was helping? My mother believed that. That doesn't mean he was. I pushed the photograph toward him. What aren't you telling me? He was silent. Your father contacted my unit 3 days before he died. My breath caught. He asked for protection. You knew. I didn't know his name at first. We received an anonymous report. I learned the connection later. You've known for years? I knew there was a connection.
I didn't know you were involved.
I am his daughter. That's why I didn't tell you. I stood and looked through the window. For years, I had thought grief made me suspicious of small details. Now the small details were becoming evidence. At 3:04 a.m., my phone vibrated. Locker 214. Union Station.
6 a.m. Come alone.
Callan read it.
No.
I'm going. That's exactly why you're not going alone. Someone knows about my father. Or wants you to think they do. Either way, they are afraid of something. At 5:32, we left. Callan followed in another vehicle. I arrived at Union Station shortly after 6. Commuters filled the main hall. Locker 214 opened with a code from the message. Inside was an envelope, an old key, and a photograph. The photograph showed my father outside a warehouse beside a woman I recognized from old news reports, Mara Quill, a former Army procurement investigator. On the back was one sentence. He trusted her after everyone else stopped. The date was October 11th, 2014, 2 days before my father's death. I opened the second compartment beneath the locker. A digital recorder waited inside. My hands went cold. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the space between us. Elena, if you ever hear this, don't believe the accident report. Callan stepped closer. The recording continued. I discovered that military identities are being duplicated. The records aren't being stolen. They're being replaced. I looked at Callan. My father spoke again. They don't need to impersonate soldiers in person. They only need the system to believe the person exists. A pause. Someone inside oversight is protecting the operation. I have evidence. Then another man's voice appeared faintly. I couldn't understand the words. My father said, "No. You promised my family would be left alone." The other man answered, "I promised nothing." Callan froze. "Play it again." I did. He listened. That was Rusk. You're sure? Yes. The recording ended. Then the recorder beeped. A second file appeared. Its date was 6 years after my father's death. That isn't possible, I whispered. Callan took the recorder. Someone added it. We played it. My father's voice returned. Elena, if you're hearing this second recording, then the first plan failed. I gripped the table. Your mother knows more than she told you. She was not involved in the operation. She was protecting you. I closed my eyes. My mother had died 6 years earlier. Then my father's voice said something that changed everything. The person who ordered the accident is not the person controlling the identities.
Callan looked at me.
2 people. My father's recording continued. Rusk ordered my death. Someone else inherited the system. The file ended. We stood in silence. Then my phone rang. A federal investigator. Lieutenant Kobayashi? Yes. You need to listen carefully. Your sister is missing. My stomach dropped. When? About 20 minutes ago. Where? Her apartment. No forced entry. What did you find? An envelope. And your sister's phone. Anything else? A pause. Your father's old military identification card. I felt my pulse accelerate. Where was it? Inside a locked safe that, according to our records, was never registered to your father. Callan took the phone. Where is the safe? The investigator gave him an address. An old storage building in Alexandria. I recognized it immediately. It was the same building from the warehouse photograph. We're going, Callan said. I nodded. We were almost out of the station when my phone vibrated again. The unknown number had sent a photograph. Mireille was sitting in a dark room. Her hands were tied. She was alive. A man stood behind her, his face hidden. Under the photograph were 3 words. Bring the key. I looked at the old key in my palm. Something had been carved into the metal. A tiny letter.
K. Callan saw it.
That isn't a locker key. What is it? He looked toward the station doors. A military master key. I stared at him. My father had not left me away into a storage locker. He had left me away into a system. And somewhere in Alexandria, someone had taken my sister to force me to use it. My father had taken me there when I was 15. He called it a storage facility, and nothing more. 12 years later, my sister was being held somewhere inside it. Callan parked 2 blocks away.
We don't go through the front, he said.
I'm angry, not calm. We approached through an alley. 3 security cameras had been deliberately turned toward the wall. That was our first warning. The second was the open side door. We entered. Rows of metal doors stretched into darkness. Unit 214 was near the center. The lock was already open. Inside, we found the safe. It was smaller than I expected. Callan examined it. Your father's card opened it? I don't know. I inserted the card. The safe clicked. Inside were 3 objects, a sealed envelope, a small black drive, and a photograph of my mother standing beside Gideon Rusk. On the back was a date. October 13th, 2014. The day after my father died. I opened the envelope. My father's handwriting covered 1 page. Elena, if this reaches you, Mireille has probably been contacted. Do not trade the key for her. I stopped. Callan leaned closer. Keep going. The person controlling this operation knows our family better than I expected. He will use Mireille because he believes you'll protect her before yourself. I looked at Callan. He knew. I continued. The key does not open a door. It authorizes a record recovery. What does that mean? It can restore deleted personnel histories. Once activated, it will show every alteration made to the identity system. Callan looked at the black drive. That may be the evidence. The lights went out. A gunshot cracked through the building. The bullet struck the metal frame above us. We dropped behind the safe. Then silence. Footsteps approached. Slow and controlled. A man stopped outside the unit. You have what you came for. I recognized the voice. Soren Vale. Callan raised his weapon. Soren. Put it down.
No.
You've always been difficult. I heard another voice behind him. Callan. My blood went cold. Mireille. She sounded frightened. Soren, let her go. She isn't the one I need. I looked at the drive. Soren called again. Elena, your father made the same mistake you are making. What mistake? Trusting records. Did you kill him? Silence. Then Soren answered.
No.
You expect me to believe that? I'll let him answer that himself. A screen inside the unit suddenly illuminated. A video began playing. My father appeared.
He was sitting at his desk. Alive.
The recording was dated October 12th, 2014. My father's face looked exhausted. If you're watching this, Elena, someone has taken control of the recovery system. He looked directly into the camera. Don't trust Gideon Rusk. I already knew that. Then he said a name I had never heard before. Trust Mara Quill. The screen went black. Soren stepped into view. He wasn't holding the gun. A second man was. I recognized him from the restaurant, the man who had stared at my name. Soren looked at the black drive. Give it to me.
No.
Then your sister stays here. Mireille cried out. Don't. Soren turned toward her. Your sister's life depends on your cooperation. I realized something. He had said your sister, not Elena. He was speaking to Mireille. I looked at her. She suddenly shook her head. No, Elena. You know him. I've seen him before. Where? Her eyes filled with tears. At Dad's funeral. Everything inside me went still. The man beside Soren lowered his weapon. Mireille whispered. He was standing beside Rusk.
Callan looked at me.
That's impossible.
Why?
Because that man died 11 years ago. The man smiled. Then he removed his glasses. Callan stepped back. You. The man looked at him. Hello, Captain Vey. You were the contractor who disappeared. Yes. My mind raced. The The soldier officially declared a deserter was alive all along. Soren looked irritated. This wasn't supposed to happen. The contractor looked at me. Your father found out what we were doing. What were you doing? Not stealing identities. He smiled. Creating replacements. For what? For people who needed to disappear. Witnesses. Witnesses, investigators, officers, contractors. Anyone who became inconvenient. I looked at the photograph of my mother. And my family? Your family was collateral. Then why am I still alive? His expression changed. Because your father hid the final authorization inside your personnel record. I understood. They had been trying to force the army to open my file. Soren stepped forward. And now you're going to help us.
No.
He smiled. You don't have a choice. I held up the black drive. Yes, I do. I pressed the only button. A green light appeared. Soren's smile disappeared. What did you do? Activated the recovery. Callan stared at me. You said you didn't know how. I didn't. The drive had activated automatically. Every light in the facility turned red. An alarm sounded. Then a voice came through the speakers. Federal agents have entered the building. Put down your weapons. Soren looked at the contractor. The contractor looked at me. For the first time, he looked afraid. The screen behind us came alive again. A list appeared. Hundreds of names. Then thousands. Every altered identity. Every false transfer. Every deleted record. At the top of the screen was one name I never expected to see. Mirei Kobayashi. I turned toward my sister. She stared at the screen. I swear, Elena, I didn't know. But beneath her name was a date. Not 4 months ago. Not the night of the engagement. It was 12 years earlier. 3 weeks before my father's death. I looked at her. Mirei began shaking her head.
No.
Callan moved closer to the screen. Elena. I couldn't answer. The system had just revealed that my sister's identity had been entered into the program before she ever met Soren. And whoever entered it had used my mother's authorization. The person who had protected our family after my father's death might not have been protecting us at all. The screen showed my sister's name twice. The first entry was dated September 2014, 3 weeks before my father's death. The second was dated 6 months later. I stared at both. Mirei shook her head. I was 17. I know. I didn't authorize anything. I know. But the dates were real. Callan looked at the federal agents entering the storage facility. Get down. A shot struck the monitor. The screen shattered, but the drive continued transmitting. Soren grabbed Mirei and pulled her behind him. Give me the drive.
No.
The contractor, who had been declared dead, raised his weapon. Then he lowered it. You don't understand, he said. I understand enough.
No.
Your sister wasn't recruited by Soren. I looked at Mirei. She was recruited by your mother. The words hit harder than the gunfire. My mother was not involved. She was. Mirei started crying. She came to my school, she whispered. I turned toward her. What? Before Dad died. Mom came to school one afternoon. She told me not to tell you. Tell me what? She said Dad was in trouble. She said people were watching our family. Why didn't you tell me? Because she made me promise. The contractor stepped forward. Your mother believed she could protect both of you by putting Mirei inside the system. That makes no sense. It does if she knew what the system was. Callan looked at the damaged screen. The identity program began as a protection system. Yes. Then Russ corrupted it. The contractor nodded. Soren was only a manager. I looked at Soren. You lied to me. I never told you I was the architect.
Who is?
Nobody answered. Then my phone rang. The number belonged to my mother's old phone. My hands went cold. I answered. Hello. A woman's voice said, Elena. I couldn't breathe. It was my mother, or a recording of her. Don't trust the man in the warehouse. The call ended. Mirei whispered, that was Mom. I shook my head. She died 6 years ago. Callan took my phone. Someone cloned the number. A new message arrived. Come to the house where your father died. Alone. The federal agents secured the building. Soren was arrested. The contractor surrendered without resistance. Mireille was taken to a separate room for questioning. I wanted to stay with her. Callan stopped me. Let them question her. She may be terrified. She also may be withholding something. I looked at him. You think she betrayed me? I think someone has been controlling your family for 12 years. That answer was enough. 2 hours later, I drove to the old crash site. The road was quiet. Rain had started falling. I parked near the guardrail. This was where my father supposedly lost control of his car. I walked into the trees. A small marker stood near the road. I had never visited it alone before. Behind the marker, I found a metal box buried under wet soil. Inside was a letter. My father's handwriting. Elena, if you're here, then your mother has failed to keep you away from this. I stopped reading. Then I saw the next line. She wasn't working for them. She was working against them. I sat beneath the trees and read the entire letter. My father explained that my mother had discovered the identity program after he did. She had secretly contacted Mara Quill. Together, they created a contingency plan. Mireille was placed into the system because her identity was being monitored. The purpose was not to use her. It was to hide her from the people hunting our family. My mother had spent years pretending to cooperate with Rusk. She gave him false information. She allowed him to believe he controlled our family. Then she died. But before she died, she created one final protection.
Me.
My father wrote that my military career had never been accidental. He had arranged for certain records to survive. Not to make me a soldier. To make me someone the system could not easily erase. I closed my eyes. For years, I had thought my parents had hidden things from me because they didn't trust me. They had hidden them because they wanted me alive. Then I found the final page. It contained one sentence. The person you must fear is not Rusk. Rusk believes he is in control. I read it twice.
My phone rang.
Mara Quill. I answered. Where are you? At Dad's crash site. Leave immediately. Why? Because I found the original authorization. What does it say? Her voice lowered. It wasn't signed by your mother. Then who signed it? She hesitated. Your father. I looked at the letter. That doesn't make sense. It does if he was trying to create a trap. For whom? For the person who took control after he died. A car approached behind me. I turned. Black SUV. The same type used by federal investigators. It stopped. A man stepped out. Not Soren. Not Rusk.
Callan.
He walked toward me. You need to come with me. I relaxed. Then I noticed his hands. No gloves. No weapon. And mud on his shoes. He had not come from the city. He had come from the woods. Where were you? He didn't answer. My phone remained connected to Mara. She whispered, Elena, don't go with him. Callan stopped. What? I looked directly at him. Mara says not to trust you. His expression changed. Then he smiled. Not Callan's usual smile. A different one. Cold. Controlled. Good, he said. Now you finally understand. He reached inside his jacket. I stepped back, but he pulled out a photograph. It showed Callan standing beside my father. The date was October 12th, 2014. The day before my father died. I looked at him. You knew him? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because your father asked me not to. Then why are you here? He looked toward the road. Because someone else knows where you are. A second vehicle appeared. This one was dark blue. Callan's face changed. Get down. We dropped behind the marker. The vehicle stopped. The door opened. A woman stepped out. I recognized her immediately. My mother.
Alive.
And she was holding a gun. My mother stood on the other side of the road holding a gun, and for several seconds I couldn't move. I had watched her coffin lowered into the ground 6 years earlier. I had signed the documents. I had stood beside Mireille, while people told us she was finally at peace. Now she was standing in front of me, older, thinner, very much alive. She looked at Callan first, then at me. Elena, she said. My throat tightened. Mom? Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I stepped out from behind the marker. You're alive. Yes. You let us bury you. I had to.
No.
My voice shook. You don't get to say you had to. Callan moved beside me. My mother lowered the gun. I know. Where have you been? Moving between safe locations. For 6 years. For 12. I stared at her. Dad knew. He knew I might disappear. Did you know he was going to die? She closed her eyes.
No.
Then who killed him? Gideon Rusk. I already knew the name, but hearing it from her made everything real. He arranged the crash, she continued. He wanted your father's evidence. Your father refused to give it to him. What evidence? The original identity registry. Callan looked at her. You mean the master archive? Yes. I remembered the drive.
The key.
The altered personnel record. Everything had been connected. My mother continued. Rusk thought the archive was hidden inside your father's office. He searched everything after the accident, but he didn't find it.
No.
Where was it? She looked at me. Inside your military record. I understood. My father's final protection had never been an object. It had been me. The key had been designed to activate a recovery process that could reconstruct the original archive from fragments. That was why they had altered my file, why they had planted the tag, why they needed me investigated. They didn't need to steal my identity. They needed my identity to open the door. I looked at Callan. You knew.
He nodded.
I knew part of it. How much? Your father contacted my team before he died. You were there. Yes. Were you there when he was killed? Callan looked down. No. Then why did you hide this? Because your father made me promise. My mother stepped closer. Callan kept his promise. I looked at her. And you? I kept mine. You lied to me for 12 years. I protected you for 12 years. That doesn't feel different.
She accepted that.
I know. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then headlights appeared behind my mother. 3 federal vehicles entered the road. She raised her gun again. Callan grabbed my arm. Stay behind me. My mother shouted. Don't. A federal agent stepped out. Mrs. Kobayashi, put the weapon down. My mother lowered it immediately. I am not your enemy. The agents surrounded her. I walked forward. She's my mother. We know. An agent approached. We've been trying to locate her for 18 months. I looked at my mother. You could have contacted me. If I had, they would have found you.
Who?
She glanced toward Callan. The people who replaced Rusk. I felt a chill. Rusk wasn't in control? No. He was a leader. He was one of several. The agent opened a tablet. Mrs. Kobayashi has provided information connecting multiple contractors, military officials, and financial intermediaries.
My mother looked at me.
Soren was only one layer. Who was above him? She hesitated. Then she pointed toward Callan. He knows. I turned. Callan's face went pale. You said you didn't know. I said I knew part of it. You knew who was above Soren? Yes.
Who?
He took a breath. General Adrian Voss. The name meant nothing to me. My mother explained. Voss controlled military oversight when your father discovered the identity program. Is he still active? No, Callan said. He retired 4 years ago. Then how is he involved now? He built the network before he retired. I looked at the agent. What happened to him? The agent answered. He died 9 months ago. My mother shook her head. Officially. The agent's expression changed. You're saying he's alive? I saw him 3 months ago. That was the next twist. The conspiracy had survived its own architect. But my mother had more. Voss created a succession system. If he disappeared, control passed automatically to another person. Who? She looked at me. You. I stared at her. What? The system was designed around bloodline authorization. Your father altered the original configuration before he died. That makes no sense. It does now. My mother explained that the identity network had originally been created with multiple emergency administrators. Voss wanted one final administrator who could never be easily removed. My father secretly changed the authorization structure. He made my personnel identity the recovery key. That meant whoever controlled my records could eventually gain control of the entire archive. Soren and Rusk had been trying to force the army to activate it, but they had made a mistake. They had underestimated what would happen when the recovery process was triggered under federal observation. The archive had copied itself into protected government systems. Every altered record was preserved. Every access attempt was logged. Every person involved was now traceable. The trap had closed. My phone vibrated. I looked down. A message appeared from the unknown number. You think you won. Then another. Look behind your mother. I turned. A man stood near the federal vehicles. He was wearing a dark coat. I didn't recognize him. Callan did. Voss. The man smiled. Then he ran. Federal agents chased him. A vehicle started. The driver accelerated toward the road. Callan pushed me aside. The vehicle clipped the rear of an SUV and crashed into the guardrail. Agents surrounded it. The driver was pulled out alive. It wasn't General Voss. It was someone else. A younger man. He looked at Callan. Tell them Voss is gone. Then he smiled. He already transferred everything. The agent restrained him. I looked at my mother. What does that mean? She took my hand. It means the network will try to survive without him. But the archive is secured. Yes. Then why are you afraid? She looked directly at me. Because the archive isn't the only thing they have. What else? The people. That was the final piece. The system had depended on hundreds of ordinary people who had accepted money, favors, promotions, protection, or fear. Removing one leader wouldn't erase them. But now we knew where to look. Over the next several weeks, federal investigators followed the records recovered from my personnel file. The arrests began quietly. Contractors first. Then financial intermediaries. Then former military officials. Dorian Wren testified. Soren Vale accepted a plea agreement. The contractor once declared a deserter revealed the locations of hidden servers. Gideon Rusk was convicted before he could leave the country. General Adrian Voss was never found. But his network was. My sister cooperated fully. She admitted that she had supplied guest lists and followed Soren's instructions. She also testified about the engagement dinner. The wine became evidence. The photographs became evidence. The messages became evidence. The altered uniform became evidence. What had been designed to embarrass me became the chain that connected the entire case. 3 months after the arrests began, my military suspension was lifted. I returned to Fort Belvoir on a cold Monday morning. The gate guard checked my identification. This time the system accepted it. I walked into my office. My desk had been replaced. The files were new. The walls looked exactly the same. But I wasn't the same person who had left them. My commander entered. Lieutenant Kobayashi. Yes, sir? Your reinstatement is official. He handed me a folder. Inside was a commendation. I looked at it. I don't want this. He smiled slightly. You earned it. I just did my job. Your job was to find missing equipment. I looked at the folder. You found something much bigger. That afternoon, I visited my mother. She was staying in a secure federal residence while her testimony was processed. For the first time in years, we sat together without pretending. I don't know how to forgive you, I told her. You don't have to. I don't know if I can trust you. You don't have to do that immediately either. I looked at her. Why did you finally come back? She smiled sadly. Because you stopped being someone I could protect by keeping you in the dark. I understood. My mother had spent 12 years protecting me with silence. My father had protected me with records. Callan had protected me with a promise. And I had finally protected myself by refusing to accept the story everyone had given me. Mireille later moved away. She ended her engagement and started working with a nonprofit that helped military families recover from financial exploitation. We didn't become close again, but we spoke. That was enough.
Callan remained in the army.
Our friendship survived everything because he eventually told me the truth, even when the truth made him look guilty. 1 year after the engagement dinner, I wore the same uniform again. The wine stain was gone. The unauthorized patch was gone. My original insignia was restored. My name tape still read, Kobayashi. I stood in front of the mirror before leaving for work. I remembered my sister's words. Fake soldier. I no longer felt angry. She had been wrong. Not because I was stronger than her. Not because I had more medals. She was wrong because she had confused appearance with identity. The uniform didn't make me a soldier. The title didn't make me one either. What mattered was what I did when people tried to rewrite the truth. That night, I visited my father's grave. My mother came with me. We stood there quietly. She placed a photograph beside his name. It was the last photograph of him before his death. I looked at it. He would have been proud, she said. I nodded. I think so. For 12 years, my family had lived with a lie. My father had been called an accident. My mother had been called dead. My sister had been manipulated. I had been turned into a suspect. And the people responsible believed they could control the truth by controlling records. They were wrong. Records can be altered. People can be bribed. Identities can be copied. But eventually, someone notices that the story doesn't fit. For me, that moment began with a glass of wine thrown across my uniform. It ended with the people who engineered the lies standing before a court. My sister thought she was humiliating me. Soren thought he was manipulating me. Rusk thought he had erased my father. And the people behind them thought I was only a name inside a database. They were all wrong. I was Elena Kobayashi. I was still here. And they had finally left enough evidence for me to prove it. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more stories about family betrayal, hidden identities, military secrets, and the moment the truth finally catches up with the people who thought they had buried it.